Standard astrophysics studies a star by dividing it into isolated disciplines. The core is assigned to thermodynamics, the interior to helioseismology, and the surface and atmosphere are left entirely to plasma morphology. This approach leaves the star theoretically divided against itself. It treats a massive, unified body as a heap of local, disconnected mechanisms. A theoretical framework called stellar closure physics addresses this fragmentation. It defines a star as a closure-stratified coherence engine. Under this model, the star possesses a continuous radial architecture from its absolute center to its outermost atmosphere. To understand stellar mechanics, we must stop studying layers in isolation. We have to track how a single mathematical order originates in the core and cascades outward into physical reality. The standard astrophysical model defines the stellar core strictly by extreme temperature, pressure, and thermodynamic output. Stellar closure physics redefines this core as a hypergravity coherence pole. This is a bounded region of maximal structural order. It serves as the generative center for the entire stellar body. This central pole generates a mathematical architecture known as invariant shell law. It specifies the ideal, structured family of wave modes and shells permitted by the geometry of a spherical resonant body, providing an admissible spectral architecture entirely independent of the physical medium. This establishes the primary rule of closure physics. Structural shells in a star are mathematically admissible before they are physically realized. That ideal mathematical architecture must survive inside a physical stellar body driven by rotation, fluid flow, and thermal stratification. As invariant shell law passes through this violent environment, it becomes a medium-modified realization. This physical stress triggers a specific mechanism of structural decay known as triad crowding. Triad crowding is the measurable increase in interaction density among active mode coupling pathways within the star's medium. High triad crowding forces the wave sectors to overlap. This creates shell crowding, which destroys the clean, distinct separation between the structural shells. Losing this separation lowers the star's closure stability functional, the overall capacity of the system to preserve structural order against deformation. The star's internal environment actively fights the pure mathematical order, pushing the system out of stable realization and driving it toward physical turbulence. Traditional astrophysics defines turbulence as the total breakdown of order into random chaos. Stellar closure physics reinterprets turbulence entirely. Here, turbulence is classified as partial closure. Partial closure is the graded, stressed inheritance of mathematical shell law. Order is never fully destroyed. It is simply partially realized under increasing transport stress. The primary diagnostic tool used to measure this preservation is the closure Reynolds number. It acts as a closure-sensitive instability measure, translating the intensity of order breakdown into testable data. Because turbulence is quantifiable partial closure rather than mere chaos, researchers can map its progression layer by layer outward from the star's core. This diagram visualizes how partial closure turbulence breaks down across 5 distinct radial bands, using the Sun as our observable model. The first measurable zone is Band 1, proto-turbulent closure. In Band 1, shell order remains dominant, but persistent physical deformations occur that the solar medium can no longer fully reabsorb. Directly beyond that lies Band 2, shear bifurcation closure, which corresponds to the solar tachocline. Band 2 is driven by high transport imbalance and shear. This causes the underlying mathematical shell to split into competing structural channels. This moves the structure into Band 3, circulatory partial closure, mapping to the stellar convective zone. By Band 3, smooth global shell realization is entirely lost. Order survives exclusively through localized, recirculating dynamic loops. Approaching the outer boundaries of the star, the transport stress on the underlying math hits its peak. This forces the structure into Band 4, fractured multiscale closure, which corresponds to the solar photosphere. In Band 4, shell inheritance survives only as intermittent, nested fragments across a multiscale field. These fragments dictate the organized cellular patterns we see on the Sun's surface. Finally, the sequence ends in Band 5, dissipative residual closure. This is the weakest band, corresponding to the solar corona. In this extreme outer environment, order exists merely as trace alignments or remnant structures before ultimately dissolving into pure dispersive release. Distinct surface phenomena, like convection cells and coronal mass ejections, are the predictable, fractured remnants of the hypergravity coherence pole projecting outward. This complete schematic reveals the fully mapped radial architecture. It unifies the generative core, the mathematical law, and all 5 bands of turbulence into one cohesive system. Under this model, stellar luminosity acts as a process of staged coherence transformation and release. To verify this cascade, researchers apply a final critical diagnostic, shell legibility. Shell legibility measures the degree to which the underlying invariant mathematical law remains visible or recoverable within the physical structure we observe. Pairing shell legibility with the closure Reynolds number turns this theoretical architecture into a strictly falsifiable, testable research program. The required philosophical shift is exact. Cores are generative before they are descriptive. Turbulence is partial closure before it is chaos. Outer release is residual order before it is pure dispersion. Stellar closure physics integrates helioseismology, thermodynamics, and plasma dynamics into a single, comprehensive radial architecture.